It's starting to rain again. The rain had cracked up a little bit. The back motors of the ship are just holding it just enough to keep it from... It bursts into flames. Get it started. It's fighting, and it's crashing. It's crashing terrible. Oh, my. Get out of the way, please. It's bursting into flames, and it's falling on the mooring mast and all the folks between it. This is terrible. This is one of the worst catastrophes in the world. Oh, it's like 400 or 500 feet into the sky, and it's a terrific crash, ladies and gentlemen. The smoke and the flames now, and the flame is crashing to the ground, not quite to the mooring mast. All the humanity and all the passengers screaming around it. I told you, I can't even talk to people. There's friends around there. I can't talk, ladies and gentlemen. Honest, it took laying down massive smoking wreckage. And everybody can't hardly breathe and talk and screaming. Lady, I'm sorry. Honestly, I can hardly breathe. I'm going to step inside while I cannot see it. Charlie, that's terrible. Listen, folks, I'm going to have to stop for a minute because I've lost the voice. This is the worst thing I've ever witnessed.
All right, that, for those of you who do not know, was the Hindenburg disaster with the airship that, exploded into flames, as you saw. Let me put my mic a little bit closer, shall we? So today's topic is, first of all, actually, what are you watching?
Yeah, what is this? You know, we always want to know that first.
SG2 on Space, the only weekly space show. Hopefully you're watching this on YouTube. Until we get to other streaming platforms, that's where you'll find us. So you can go youtube.com/SGgood/streams. Do a search for SG2 on Space. This currently is episode 217, where we're going to talk about abandoned technologies. I'm going to throw a ticker on the bottom. Your hosts, Shen and Leonard Kramer. This guy right here, who is muted and is...
Hey, Shen, what up? Yeah. I was muted. We're always confusing or mute.
You
or not.
Excited about the show? Another, another Sunday afternoon here.
Well, that's interesting how you started up. You know, we do a poem, and that was kind of poetry. You probably never heard that before.
It was like pretty poetic, I thought. I mean, this sense of how much emotion he was expressing. Before I continue on, though, I'm going to say thank you to our supporters and patrons, Kyle Baker, Sam Welsh, John Graves, and as always, Atum Ra, who helped support the show for almost 2 years back in the day. So, Lord Ra. To support the show, you can go to patreon.com/SG2 on Space, and I will keep the ticker on the bottom running. With all that, I know last time for viewers, I said we're going to dress up a steampunk, but it seems like that has not transpired. Still,
we'll do it another time.
We'll do it another time. But I'm still weirdly dressed, so this is what I'm going with. Back in the day, people...
I'm also weirdly dressed.
I mean, that's just Leonard.
Yeah.
And you're not wearing a headband, though.
Yeah, that's what's weird about me.
That is weird. I can see your more of your forehead than ever before.
Never before. I mean, this always bothers me about I want to be centered.
Let's jump into the topic here because there's a lot to go over. So
yeah,
what we saw was a zeppelin. So like what that was, for those who don't know, that was one of the major disasters that happened. Why were zeppelins originally considered, like the future? And what happened?
So I guess our topic is abandoned technologies, but one of the things that it always stimulates my imagination about the Zeppelin, because it's an airship, kind of rigid airship that features like a framework covered in fabric, and it's filled with a gas, a lighter than air gas, and it was invented by a count in Germany named von Zeppelin in the early 20th century. And these airships were thought of as like the future. This is how we are going to travel across the globe. And they did go into service with a company called the Zeppelin Company. And the German, the German government at the time, after the Nazi time came, they used it as for great propaganda purposes. But other countries were also involved in the building of these things. So what we watched at the beginning is probably most of our audience has never heard that before, but that was a newscaster, and his name escapes me. Morrison, I think. We could check on that. But it was such a big deal in 1937 that he went around and he made a recording of this, and there was something unusual about the broadcast. He was supposed to have, I think he traveled from Chicago to Lakehurst, New Jersey, where the Hindenburg came in. I'm pretty sure I know. There's always stories about what went wrong and Mythbusters and doing experiments, but I'm sure that the aircraft charged up because of the vertical field gradient and dropping ballast. So, I mean, we did our atmospheric electricity one time, and I'm sure it charged up to about 1,000 volts, and there was some arc at some point, and maybe some gas was.
I guess just to give some idea, at this time, this was like the early late 19th century, right?
That was the late 30s. That was shortly before the Second World War.
Right. What we showed was, but Zeppelins were first used like the late 19th century.
Late 19th century, and in the first few decades of the 20th century.
And aircrafts were not around yet, right? Like in the sense of
so conventional airplanes were not well established. So they were initially developed, and they saw great success because some of these vehicles would fly. They could fly across the Atlantic. They could easily fly to South America, and there was a number from that era. And it was thought of as like a natural evolution from an ocean cruise to an air cruise. So you would have many customers, and they would have sleeping berths, and it was very expensive for the time, and so that was but it didn't work. It actually kind of like got overtaken by the safety issue. Most of even the Zeppelins that were built by the Navy, U.S. Navy, they were all abandoned also just because of general safety. One of the interesting things about the airship, the gas that was used, there's two kinds of gases that can be used. One of them is hydrogen. Hydrogen is extremely inflammable and dangerous. Why do they use hydrogen? Because hydrogen is lighter than air, and it's easily produced. All you need to do is electrolyze water. I think it can also be produced, chemically from natural gas and that sort of thing. But the United States had an almost monopoly supply of another gas called helium, which is a neutral, an inert gas, and much safer, also lighter than air. But not as good as hydrogen, but it did have the advantage that it did not explode when you lit a match around it. So the United States had a monopoly on that, and they were not sharing that with the Germans. The political relationship with Germany in the early to mid 30s started to become tense, for the obvious reasons that we know about.
Well, you talked about World War II before, so
yeah. So this was shortly before. In 1930, it was all the rage, and in fact, the United States. I'm going to show you something. I just remember.
Leonard is running out doing something. So right now we see his dollar bills in euros.
Yeah, hush. So I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah, actually, I could see it. Let me see if I can get you back up here. What is that?
So these are postage stamps.
Oh, is that zeppelins?
Those are zeppelins, and these are the Graf Zeppelin. This is the Postal Service.
Wow.
The Postal Service. They kind of
they used zeppelins to deliver mail back then. That's what you're telling me.
That was what they were thinking in 1930. And these stamps are very valuable things that I have on my wall. I just ripped it off the wall. And
really
took some of the paint. But you see, they're mint stamps. You could actually put those on an envelope and use them, but I wouldn't do that.
A little blurry from this vantage point, but I'm sure if you so I just forgot. I forgot about this. I thought I'd like to show the audience this. So this is a series of stamps that were created in 1930 with the U.S. Postal Service to kind of promote the use of Zeppelin
the use of the Zeppelin. But by the 1930s, by the end of the 30s, it was defunct. They decided that other ways of air travel.
Before the Hindenburg disaster, that they assumed this was going to be defunct?
I think the Hindenburg basically was kind of the coup de grace. I think they flew a little bit more after that, but it was not. It just became obsolete, and so that's what's interesting to me. It's sort of interesting because humanity had this idea at that particular point in time. Let's say 1930, and if they looked ahead to the future,
mm-hmm.
they assumed that Zeppelins would be. If they looked ahead 100 years, they assumed that Zeppelins would be used, or airships would be used for intercontinental air travel, just as they had experienced with ocean travel. So
you're saying they projected, like in the early days of the 1930s.
That's right.
Like the future would be all Zeppelins zipping around.
That was how we were going to fly. That was how we were going to engage in transportation, just like ocean liners. So instead of ocean liners, we do airliners. And then it also was sort of it was like the word I think is like zeitgeist. Like the vision of the world and the future and the feeling of progress was embodied by that, and also maybe like the art of the time and poetry and music.
A lot of the, I don't know if it's modern day, but like when people think steampunk, they think airships, right? Yeah, like a prevailing theme there.
Maybe, yeah, airship, maybe, yeah. Sometimes you see that.
But overall, let's I guess jump up in terms of like what we're saying here is that with the advent of aircrafts, airships became defunct.
Commercial use of airships declined very significantly after the Hindenburg disaster because the inherent dangers of using hydrogen and just the inherent danger of the technology itself. They were just very vulnerable to the weather. The United States had large airships also that were used for military purposes, but they largely abandoned them. They were doing all kinds of things. They even had airship aircraft carriers, like a airship that would have small airplanes, and it would.
That sounds really steampunkish.
Right.
Sci-fi.
So that was actually done. That the United States actually experimented with that, but they were all abandoned. We don't use. You hear about them coming back from time to time. There may be some advantages to them, but overall, the thing that I'm interested in is like the cultural attitude about them. I don't really have the right word, to say that it sort of imbued the entire vision of the world. If you ask people, what's the in 1930, if you ask somebody, what's it going to be like in 2000, in the year 2000 or the year 2030? How would people would think of airships. They would think of, things that were sort of extrapolated from the technology that they had, but they missed the mark in a lot of ways. And so
that's how they think. They thought back then.
Right.
This is like, well, I guess when people project when people project the future, they always just take what is already existing and just multiply it 1,000.
Exactly. They try to do that, and so you're going to miss the mark if you do that. So you hear people talking about it today. And so I can think of now. I do have like for the Hindenburg. I have a personal connection to it. You remember Degrees of Freedom.
I'm kidding.
So what?
I said, were you on there?
No, I wasn't on it. It was over 20 years before I was born.
Well, okay.
But
I figure you're like an eternal existence.
No, my well, in the current form, so, but
yeah.
So my family was located in central New Jersey at the time, and so I do remember as a little boy seeing pieces of fabric and other pieces of things that had been somehow recovered from the Hindenburg, and I knew people who I'm sure they're long gone by now, but who remember the event and remember the ambulances and the hospitals being filled up with burned victims.
That opening scene was very touching. I mean, that guy was clearly not acting. Just seeing that live.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was a guy named, I don't know, Herbert Morrison, I think was his name, Herbert Morrison, and he was a broadcaster. So the thing about that was that so that was so emotional, so evocative, right? And it's so people should pay attention to that. We're a little bit desensitized today, I think, to that kind of thing. But at that time, people had never seen anything like that before, and the audio did not actually go with the video. The video was filmed separately. And he witnessed it, and so I think he did some interviews about it afterward. But one thing I wanted to remark on was about a year after that disaster, there was a radio program by an actor named Wells. Help me out. He did a Halloween special on the War of the Worlds.
Oh, H.G. Wells.
No, that was the author of the story. There was another Wells, and I can't.
Is it journalist? What is he?
He was an actor and producer.
Orson.
I'll find Orson Welles. Yeah.
W-E-L-E-S.
Yeah. So this is somebody you've never heard of, I'm sure.
I mean,
So
he lived before. Oh wait, hold on a second. Wrong thing.
Yeah.
One moment. Just keep going. Keep talking.
So he was a producer, and he did a show on October 30th in 1938, where they reenacted the War of the Worlds on the radio. So they did. You're listening to the Mercury Theater production of H.G. Wells's War of the Worlds, and it frightened people. So a lot of people were said to be frightened. My parents remember it. My parents remember it, but they weren't frightened by it at all. They knew it was. They knew it was a radio show.
They read the book and they knew what was happening.
Well, they just knew it was a radio show because there were commercial breaks where they said that it was
not as intelligent people assumed that we were invaded by Martians.
I think so, but it frightened people, and the reason I bring it up in relationship to the Hindenburg, Herbert Morrison's narration was that they used the mood of that recording, and in the radio, they didn't do that particular one, but they had an actor who sort of used the Herbert Morrison audio report from the Hindenburg to reflect the drama of the Martians invading, and it's like there was a heat ray, and this is the worst thing I've ever witnessed, and then the mic goes dead, So I think it was great fun and great entertainment, but it did upset some people. But doesn't have anything to do with obsolete technology.
Yeah, I would like to take us back on track. Can we?
Okay, so the next thing I had
Concorde. Sorry,
Concorde. Yeah, so the Concorde represented the height of passenger travel, and so it was the same kind of deal. And so it was supersonic. It was a technological marvel, but it had to retire due to the high operating costs and the noise restrictions and limited demand.
I mean, the technology for commercial air travel has never been faster than the Concorde, right?
We don't have any supersonic transports now. The promise was, it promised to revolutionize air travel with ability to cruise at Mach 2. That's 2 times the speed of sound. And so it was able to get across the Atlantic in just over 3 hours. And so it was, they said that it was a very luxurious way to travel, but I looked at it.
Did you ever travel on it?
Oh, no, I never did. I know someone who did.
Okay.
And I know someone who knows someone who did. So it represented, I guess, like the pinnacle of aviation technology, showcasing advancements in aerodynamics, materials, and the engine design. And it was a European effort, So Boeing and the United States was working on a Concorde in the early 60s, but we're Americans and we're capitalist, and so they looked at the numbers, and I think they just figured this is not going to be economic. They were right. Okay, I don't think the Concorde,
British French company, right?
British French. I think it was called at the time. It was British Aircraft Corporation, and another one called Sud Aviation, which was Aerospatiale nowadays.
Right.
So
can you tell a little bit about what ended up happening? I mean, it seems like technologically it was successful, right?
Well, it entered service. It entered service in 1976. I kind of remember that coming up. I was in high school at the time, but in 2000 there was Air France flight that crashed shortly after takeoff. There were 109 people on board, and they were all killed. And so I think that the cause of the accident was a piece of debris that had been kicked up by the tires on the plane and punctured the wing and caused the fuel to start spilling out. I think I'm not sure. I don't want to say, but there was another airline that had lost a piece of material. I don't want to say what airline that was because I don't exactly know who it was, but they did. So anyway, the Concorde retired. And
the July 25th, 2000 Air France flight 4590.
Yes, right. I don't know the exact date. When did you say it was?
I mean, I'm basing
it was in the year 2000.
Wikipedia here. The Arbiter of Truth.
Okay.
Right?
Yes. It's actually not bad. So they did fly the other Concordes for a few years after that, but it was retired in 2003, and that was the end of an era. And so, and it was also sort of crushing a vision of the future. The same kind of thing in the 1960s. Planes were getting bigger, faster.
And then now we're at the point where planes are ever slower, right? Like, what's happening?
Yeah, well, that's a good way to put it. They're falling apart and
falling apart. Like, air travel is no better than it was 30 years ago. I mean, really, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Like, do you have any idea? No.
I think we've kind of come to the. Well, no, I actually think that supersonic transport commercial supersonic transport is something that we could try again. I think that with more modern materials and better
It seems
management.
like, like there'd be a lot of interest from people in, especially transoceanic flights that take forever.
Yes,
So
that's right. I mean, yeah, if you've flown across the ocean, Pacific Ocean, it can be pretty miserable, especially if it's United Airlines. But
I mean,
I just slipped. But
are you going to get in trouble? You don't work for United Airlines.
no, I just didn't want to name. I actually, that was sort of, I did not have a good experience on United Airlines, but that's me. That's other people.
I mean,
like being stuffed into a sausage.
This is what I'm saying, right?
Sardines,
You're gonna get stuffed into like a metal canister for like 18 hours or 20 hours. I'm just throwing out numbers there. I mean, if that thing goes much faster, you wouldn't need to be there that long. So
that's right. But
I guess
you can get the same. You can get the same effect with certain pharmacological agents, I suppose. So, I mean, with a prescription,
Oh, okay. I see how this is going.
So the Concorde's retirement marked the end of an era for supersonic passenger travel. But I mean, I guess the legacy kind of like continues to inspire advancements. So we kind of know it's possible.
Right. Okay. We got a bunch more to go through. So let's hit the next one.
We don't need to go through all of them. The Segway.
Yes.
The
Segway. Segway into the Segway.
Oh my God. There is a guy named Dean Kamen or Kamen.
Okay. So
and
talk about, it's revolutionized the world, right? For personal transportation. Segways, right?
Yeah, it was, there were all kinds of, I remember reading an article in the Wall Street Journal about this mysterious thing that was going to be, revolutionize, and it was like, they were wondering if it was a hovercraft or something. Okay. So anyway, the Segway is like a two-wheeled self-balancing electric vehicle.
It looks cool. I might want to get one just for fun, but it's expensive.
So,
all right, go on.
Yeah, he codenamed it Ginger for some reason, and there was all this speculation and hype about what, it was all shrouded in mystery, before it was unveiled. And some people thought it might be some kind of groundbreaking invention, like on the scale of the personal computer or the internet. And the excitement was fueled by, like, there were endorsements from notable figures, and there's all this secrecy about the details of the product. And when it was finally introduced, it was like, really?
It's like,
yeah.
Hey, like, this is what all the hype was about. This thing.
So I think a lot of people felt kind of I don't know what the word is, sort of underwhelmed, compared to the colossal expectations that have been.
What was I guess for the inventor, what's his name, Dean Kamen, and all the investors, why did they think it was going to be such a revolutionary big deal?
Well, there's a possibility that they did not, and that they were just trying to hype it. I mean, I don't know who's to say. You can introduce a product like this, like the cell phone, or Apple computer. And definitely some of the people who invented these things.
Apple computer revolutionized the world.
Well, I know, but Apple computer and Windows and that kind of thing. At the time we were using computers, I mean, I predate, Windows and even the mouse and that kind of stuff. And I remember trying to come up to speed with.
Anyway, go on.
What?
Sorry. I was making a joke about you being around forever, but please continue.
Yeah. So well, I mean, I thought like our audience would like to hear about that kind of stuff, but because when the cell phone came out, like here's the iPhone, it's like I didn't have the vision. I didn't ever have the vision that people would have a phone and you could do all these things with it, and now we almost can't live without it, right? So
I guess you're basically saying you can never predict what kind of technology would
right.
So like the Segway, for instance, might have been widely adopted. It just turned out
It just that's exactly You said it more articulately. Yeah, you articulated what I'm trying to say better than.
All right, understood.
But,
all right,
yeah.
Let's go into the next one. That seems a little really interesting. Cold fusion. What is that?
No, I don't want to do cold fusion. I want to do another company. I didn't tell you about this one. This is another one. Okay. There was a company. There's a company.
Not
called
talking about cold fusion.
Theranos. Theranos was a health technology company. It was founded in 2003 by Elizabeth Holmes. Yeah, I know. I got you a little bit off.
Okay, so we are not talking about cold fusion. We're going to talk about.
We will. Yeah. Let's do this first. Yeah.
Okay, Theranos.
And so Elizabeth Holmes dropped out of Stanford at the age of 19 to start this company. And the company claimed to have developed a revolutionary blood testing technology that conduct a wide range of tests with just a few drops of blood using some kind of automated compact device. And she had like a name for it. I don't know. I forgot what it was called. And so
tests that require very small amounts of blood and that could be performed rapidly and accurately.
Yeah.
All using compact automated devices that the company had developed. These claims were proven to be false. Oh my.
Yeah. So I remember when this came out and I was kind of following it and I was thinking, I've heard this story before. Where did I hear about this? And then I thought and I remembered, in 1969, and I did some research on this. In 1969, there was a TV show which a lot of you probably heard of called Hawaii Five-0. Okay, how do we connect Hawaii Five-0? Well,
how do you want to first Hawaii 5-0 to this? In
the first season, there was a 2-part session called Once Upon a Time.
Okay.
And yeah.
Is the 1968 TV series?
Maybe it might be 68. Late 60s.
Here, this one, right?
Hawaii Five-0, yeah.
That's it.
And so the reason I know about this is so in 1969 I was 11 years old, and this was a show that I watched. Okay, this is on so good. Yeah, and so in this show the main characters the star of the show is Steve McGarrett. He had this great hair all the time, but never mind that. Anyway, so there was this a quack doctor who was played by an actress named Joanne Linville, who also had some connections with Star Trek, but I digress. And so in this one, she claimed to have a machine that could analyze a single drop of blood and provide a diagnosis. And so it was, so they worked on, it involved the Food and Drug Administration and investigation and courtroom and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not going to give away the ending, but it's actually a pretty good show. So anyway, that was what was so wild about this, was that I seemed to be the only person who made that connection. That Theranos, Elizabeth Holmes, she must have seen this show.
So she decided, hey, I'm gonna make up a real company claiming to have the technology that I was inspired by Hawaii Five-0, but really I got nothing, and I'm just getting people's money.
Yes, she's just getting. So anyway, I think she's in jail now. So
I mean, it's probably well deserved to be in jail for doing that kind of fraud. But
so I don't know if this is exactly abandoned technology, but it certainly.
It wasn't even real technology, though.
It wasn't real technology. It wasn't even real. So
this guy.
I wanted to insert that before the cold fusion. Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about cold fusion.
So cold fusion. This is something that popped up in the late 80s, I guess. By these two researchers named Fleischman and Pons, and I don't remember who they were working for, but
whatever. Cold fusion, for those who don't know, is a hypothetical type of nuclear reaction.
Nuclear reaction that would occur
at room temperature, right? All right, go on.
Room temperature. Yeah.
Sorry. Enough excitement.
That's all right. We need some participation. I don't want to monopolize the entire
Well, please.
Well,
You're the big brain guy.
so, well, anyway, usually fusion is like the energy of the future, right? It's always 30 years away. So, but actually things are kind of shaping up now because it is 2025, and it's now like maybe any day now we may get fusion. But this was something that happened in the late 80s, where there was this thing called cold fusion that was all in the news, and it was considered a potential breakthrough in energy production. So the cold fusion experiments, it was as you say, hypothesized type of nuclear reaction that would occur near room temperature, as opposed to the extremely high temperatures required for hot fusion. And of course, it's sort of run of the mill for stars. That's how stars work, stars in the sun, and also in the hydrogen bomb, but in order to control it. So in the cold fusion experiments, they used a heavy hydrogen, which is called deuterium. So deuterium is a kind of an isotope of hydrogen that has a proton and a neutron. Most hydrogen is just a proton, right? So there's three kinds of hydrogen. There's regular hydrogen with a single proton, and then you can have deuterium, which is a hydrogen and a neutron, and then there's something called tritium, which is a hydrogen and two neutrons. So, and tritium is radioactive and will decay after with a half-life of around 12 years. But that's neither here nor there. So the cold fusion experiment was facilitating a reaction, or supposedly facilitating a reaction through the use of a catalyst, a metal called palladium. And so the idea was that the hypothesis was that the deuterium atoms would be absorbed into the palladium lattice, and somehow that would overcome the repulsion of the nuclei, and then the deuterium would then fuse into tritium and neutrons and produce heat. And so they were reporting that their apparatus produced excess heat, but it was extremely small amounts. They said that they found extremely small, that you need to have neutrons liberated. Neutrons are kind of difficult to detect. And so, but other researchers, including like the definitive work on it was MIT Plasma Fusion Center and some other research groups, including Google, have pretty much. Well, I wouldn't say pretty much. They have completely discredited the result and have attempted to replicate the cold fusion experiments that were reported. So that the efforts kind of,
Well, is this another example of people just making up things, or did they really think?
I'm usually kind of tough on them. I don't really. I do think that this was something along the lines of too much excitement about some vague result, and so it's hard to say whether it was a deliberate fraud,
right?
But the challenges and inconsistencies in replicating the original cold fusion claims,
it is not a deliberate case like the Theranos thing was.
The Theranos was a criminal thing, but the reason I wanted to put it in there is because I like I said, I think I'm the only person who made the connection to the Hawaii 5.0 because of my almost savant-like memory for television in the 60s.
You have a savant-like memory overall, I will say.
So, but
hey, that's a compliment to you.
Yeah. So,
anyway.
And the next thing on our list was
Next up,
what else want to talk
about? Flying cars. We got to talk about that.
What's up? I don't know what. I did a little research on flying cars. I didn't really, that's like a long-standing dream of the future transportation. But I think there's so much technical and regulatory issues. But we might have drones someday that can.
The opening, like this thing, right?
Yeah.
Like don't you want something like that?
Absolutely. Are you kidding?
1947.
Yeah.
You know that they actually flew this?
I think I did. Yes, I think I did hear about it. Yeah.
Completely absurd. Like it looks like somebody stuck a plane on top of a car, but they actually built.
Well, that would be a flying car, wouldn't it?
Literally, it's like
and it's flying. There's a picture of it flying.
Okay, but it did not. yeah, like Little Enthusiasm Remaining Project program. So what's the problem with flying cars? Like, why do we not have them?
Well, they face it's technical problems, also regulatory issues. So it's like it'd be like giving everyone an atomic bomb, you know.
This was hilarious. I don't know why. I just Mizar by Advanced Vehicle Engineers. I mean, every so often, it's like this is a ever non-dying dream that some entrepreneurs would get together and try to come up with something.
Exactly.
Right? That's what happens like every decade.
Yes.
Yeah. Except it still is not anything that is at the moment. Yeah.
But except that now we're hearing talk about drones, the use of drones, and the use of drones to deliver like to deliver mail or deliver things from
this is fascinating.
Yeah.
All these different designs that people came up with.
Yeah. I think that this is something that we're kind of laughing about right now, and we have this idea that
I don't think we should laugh about it. That's the thing,
right? Because with the use of software, and then when we figure out how to use software for life critical systems, once we learn how to do that right, and not use proprietary software or senior projects to land a 747, then we might be able to realize this. The same thing with self-driving cars, which I think is going to happen.
Seems to be more of a likely next step in automobile revolution than flying cars would be, right?
They may not. Well, yeah, the self-driving car, but some kind of aircraft transportation using a drone, I think is feasible. I know Amazon has been doing like experiments to deliver packages by drone. I think even the pizza place, like to deliver a pizza.
I mean,
so that'd be cool.
So flying cars, I don't know if I should call it abandoned technologies because it has not been fully abandoned yet. I mean,
I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Orion Aerospace earned an official FAA airworthiness certification as powered by 10 independent propulsion systems. Company claimed top speed 140 miles an hour, 60-mile range. I mean, there's all these new technologies coming up, and
and they do talk about regulatory challenges, but all you have to do to get rid of the regulatory challenges is to put Elon Musk in charge of the FAA, and then the regulatory problems will go away.
This thing looks goofy as hell.
That was a joke.
No, I heard your joke.
Yeah.
Let's move on because we got more HD, DVD, Betamax, VHS, Laserdisc. Yeah, what happened?
Well, what can I say?
Yeah, why do we not really happen? I guess they lost out in the technology battles.
I guess the HD TV, they were overshadowed by VHX. They were and then there was also laser discs. I remember one of my classmates in graduate school had these laser discs with all of the original series of Star Trek on it. But they're too bulky and expensive, and they were replaced by the digital and streaming.
This kind of thing, I've never seen one.
What? You've never seen a laser disc? Yeah, they're big platters.
How do you play these things?
With a laser disc
reader
playing thing. Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, so Betamax wasn't adopted either.
That's right. And a lot of it was just almost kind of like luck. I mean, because I don't know that the Betamax, was technically any less capable or than the VHS.
One HD DVD, right? What happened to HD DVD?
That was HD DVD was a particular.
I think I have some videos using HD DVD. I don't even know how I would play them these days. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what company was promoting that. Was
Toshiba.
Toshiba, yeah.
So
anyway, it kind of and then we don't even really need it anymore because we've got streaming. So they're all of these technologies are abandoned, or they're going to be soon abandoned. I went to get an MRI for just a routine test, and the doctor asked me to get a CD, and so I got the CD for the MRI, and I have it, and I can't. I don't even have a computer that will read a CD anymore. So I don't even have a CD I do not have a computer anywhere in my house that will read a CD, or maybe I do somewhere, but I mean, I don't really have any much interest in the CD. So all of these disk technologies, all these hardware things are obsolete, including computer disk drives. Disk drives are not disks anymore.
What are disk drives?
Well, they're electronic, solid state.
Okay.
Disk drives.
Okay.
So there. Yeah.
All right.
So
how much more do we have here? There's a lot. Do we have to cover?
We can skip. No, we don't. Well, I mean, let's just go through. So we got analog TV. We don't do TV anymore, right? TV.
Yeah. No analog TV.
There used to be pagers. There used to be like before cell phones, we had these little pagers. What do you need those for? Certainly you don't need manual typewriters. Probably a lot of our audience has never even seen a typewriter. A typewriter. You know what? Yeah. So I think there's some around. And then in the old days, when you talked on the phone, you had a phone and it had a rotary dial, and you'd turn it, and then it would go click, 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 and it would send a signal through the line. I don't even know whether a rotary dial will work.
Okay, so we covered analog TV, pagers, manual typewriters, rotary dial telephones. We don't need those anymore since we got cell phones. Film cameras. Now, okay, everybody, most people know about that. So in the old days, standard photography, before we had like this digital revolution, everything is digital. So film cameras are kind of a niche now, but people still use them when they're like for hobbyists and people who.
Okay, yeah. So that's right. I think people do have fun. Like with the film, you can still buy film. You can still buy the and people will do it. They'll develop their film at home, and then you can do some kind of distinctive aesthetic. Like the film has like a certain kind of organic look with tones and grain and more dynamic range. But I mean, it's still something that people have fun with and kind of inspire the creativity. So, but it's sort of not a thing anymore. We're not sending our little film canisters off or taking them off to the photo store to get put on printed. So.
That's okay. So aside from film cameras, I'm going to skip the M drive since we've talked about that a bunch of times.
Okay, but yeah, but I think it's true abandoned technology and maybe borders on fraud. But we can talk about that another time.
We can.
So, all right. So now we come to.
Talk about the space shuttle. So what's going on there?
People are going to be upset with me. All right. So on April 12th, 1981, the first space shuttle was launched, and it was supposedly heralded a new era of reusable spacecraft with promises of frequent and cost-effective space travel. And I remember it well. Okay, I remember reading about it all through the 1970s, and National Geographic and different Scientific American talking about the space shuttle, how we were going to have routine access to space. It would fly maybe every 2 or 3 weeks, up to 40 flights a year. And I kept wondering when that was going to happen. All through the 80s, I thought that that's what they were pushing for. That we were continuing to develop it and improve it. And then in January 28th, 1986, space shuttle disaster and killed the astronauts, and it exposed like critical flaws in the design, safety protocols. right? You know, the space shuttle did not have an escape system like the Apollo had an escape tower, like with rockets at the top. So if something went wrong, it could pull the capsule away and take the astronauts, the crew, away, and they could land in a parachute far away. And we have returned to that kind of technology. We now have a rocket and a capsule with an escape system. Space shuttle didn't have that, so it was intrinsically, in my opinion, intrinsically dangerous. And we returned to flight after about 2 years, and then in 2003, almost the same time of year, February 1st, 2003, the shuttle Columbia, upon reentry, we lost another 7 astronauts, and it further highlighted the inherent dangers. And shortly after that, President Bush II, second Bush, canceled. Said we have to do something about that. And in 2011, it completed its final mission, STS-135.
I saw the launch of the final mission in 2011.
Yeah. Well, I was working at NASA. I was working at NASA in '86 when this shuttle Challenger disaster occurred. I did not actually see it take off because it was pretty routine at that point. I remember I was working in the laboratory for atmospheres at Goddard Space Flight Center in Maryland, and I had gone to the credit union, and all these people were standing around facing me, and the TV monitor was above them, and all the people were looking up, and so I could see them, and they all seemed happy and everything when I went into the credit union. When I came out, I could see the people were still looking at the TV monitor, and they didn't look good, so I knew something bad had happened. And as I was walking back to my desk, I kept hearing in the offices, the space shuttle exploded. This terrible thing happened to the space shuttle. And then, so that's what happened. So I remember that.
Lost hope in the what do you call it? The era of reusable space flying vehicles.
Right. And the problem with it was that with Apollo and with our current Artemis system, the space launch system, we're disposing of the pieces that we don't need anymore. In other words, we're dropping off the thing. With the space shuttle, the vision was that we would have a reusable system, just like an airplane. We would fly up and then land on a runway, but the technology required to do that was prohibitive. Really, think about it. We have to go up into space, and we have to carry wings and landing gear and all the life support things that have to go with flying an airplane in the atmosphere. When to get into space, when you're operating in space, you don't really need those things. And in fact, you don't even really need to land on a runway, as you can see from the experience with Apollo and now with Orion. It was kind of like, at the time, it seemed like the right thing to do, like reusable. We want to have a reusable plane. But it was technologically flawed in this, and in my opinion, in the same manner as the airships of the 1930s. And in fact, I think that the relationship between the airship of the 30s and the shuttle of the 70s and 80s and 90s and early part of this century are very, very parallel, and it highlights a kind of I don't know. You can't visualize. You can't project ahead. You make decisions and you move forward and you try to do things. But we were slow to recognize the deficiencies of the space shuttle. And I know there are probably some people who are listening to me who worked on the space shuttle, and I worked on the space shuttle.
Heck, you could work on something and still realize that the technology is not sustainable.
But I was very naive and very disappointed that it didn't progress the way it would, and then we finally started having accidents. So anyway, that's.
So shall we? All right.
Yeah.
to anybody out there listening, feel free to post your comments, but we are going to have to end our show. It's once again turned out to be almost an hour long. And
Wow.
Yep.
We
But
need to work on that. Well, the initial promise of the Zeppelin, airship, it promised extra air, an era of air travel with luxurious long distance flights, and space shuttle promised to revolutionize space travel, and just didn't work out that way. So the high expectations.
if the audience has any technology of interest, we can talk about it in the future. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right. I'm just going to say that.
And that's all I wanted to say.
Okay. All right, everybody. What have you been listening to? SG2 on Space, the only weekly space show where Leonard does most of the talking. I'm kidding. In this particular episode, yeah.
I'm sorry.
I feel like
we'll work on that too.
All right. So for everyone, support the show, patreon.com/SG2 on Space. Thank you to Kyle Baker, Sam Welsh, and John Graves for your kindly donations. And also thank you to our audience members for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, do all the good, fun stuff that you do.
You betcha.
All right. And as always, happy holidays for anybody who is watching us live.
Christmas, Hanukkah. We always, Hanukkah, it actually celebrates a military victory over the Greeks. So
definitely.
Yeah. Merry Christmas and death to the Greeks.
Are you
Shalom.
That's
the ancient Greeks. The Seleucids. The Seleucids.
Okay, all right, good. Let's clarify that, right? We don't want to be like, saying, you just, oh my gosh. All right.
We're in trouble, aren't we?
Leonard's humor can get mildly inappropriate at times without proper explanations. All right, let's say, all right, goodbye, everyone.
Namaste. Shalom. Mwah.